What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play. Rich Quinones here, joined with our NBA insider, as always, Jonathan Marshall at John_Marshall, and from myself at Rich QNQ. Don't forget the pod and our betting insight to handicapping, everything from our good friends over at SpookyExpress.com. Check them out online. One of their best affiliates is Bet Online, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But good to touch base again, Jonathan. Good stuff last week. Yeah. Another week in the books in the NBA. Giannis out for a little bit, comes back. Kawhi, welcome back. I mean, you got some good matchups. Light night on the docket. We'll look at it, but we'll also look at tomorrow night, Wednesday. But what's going on, pal?
Pretty good up here in New England. Still bracing for that first hit of snow. I'm bracing for it. I'll keep you tapped into it.
Yeah. You might have to keep me abreast of the situation. So are you going to have to worry about shoveling out anywhere?
I don't. I live in an apartment complex, so they take care of that for me, thankfully. So I just got to worry about, my own vehicle and taking everything. But it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that count as the association fee or whatever the hell they charge?
Yeah.
An arm and a leg. Yeah. Hey, man, we just got to weather through it, right? And fight through it. And hopefully spring will be here. All right. So tonight, as I mentioned, light night on the docket. Lakers, Cavs. Nice contest. You look at Cleveland, one of the best records at home in the NBA, 10-1, overall 15-9. They're laying 5.5. We saw what Davis did the other night. What was it? 44-45. Everyone was chanting MVP. I mean, it's tough to get those night in and night out, but what's your thoughts on this game tonight between LA and Cleveland?
Yeah, obviously the storyline is anytime LeBron goes back to Cleveland, that's always exciting, right? That's a part of his history, right? And so that's always exciting. Can the Lakers defeat a team that is poised to make a deep Eastern Conference run? That's the storyline. The Cleveland Cavs are legit.
Yeah.
With that trio of Mobley and Darius Garland and Mitchell, even Jared Allen. I know he's been hurt, but they've been showing improving this year, and they have to deal with that backcourt. I'm interested to see how they handle that backcourt of Mitchell and Garland. It's going to be a test.
I know you mentioned LeBron going back to Cleveland. Has that kind of lost its luster, though?
In some ways, I guess it has. Cleveland has moved on. They're building their own situation right now, and they're better. They're a much improved team. They've gotten so much better over the years, and they got their championship. So in some sense, things do lose its luster, right? But I'm pretty sure there's still a special thing whenever he comes back home. That will always be there, but the luster won't be the same as like when he first left, right? It's just not going to happen. So, but it's still interesting always to see him coming back though.
You like the Cavs laying the number tonight at 5.5?
For sure.
Yeah, I do as well. You've got the Pistons and Heat. I mean, Detroit's going through. It's probably ultimately going to be one of their worst seasons, right, in franchise history. I mean, they're not even playing competitive. They got one or two players. I mean, you can harken back to the old 80s before they start to make their run. And then, there was a little bit in the mid 90s and the 2000s. It's cynical. We know that against Miami. Miami's trying to get their record back to 500 right now. They sit 11-13, but Detroit's a horrible road team at 2-11. I think I talked a little bit about them with you last week. I mean, I would lean them a lot this year. Miami's laying a touchdown, right? Miami's laying 7 in this one. The total is 220. I don't know how you can go on the side of Detroit. I mean, I just, and I know the Heat have been banged up a little bit here and there with Jimmy Butler, but I still think they have enough horsepower to cover that number.
Yeah, they have enough. Butler's back. I'm not sure if you paid attention to the Boston game. When he hit the game, crazy, unbelievable shots. And so you have a guy like Jimmy Butler, late game situations.
Yep.
I can't go against that, especially against the Detroit team that's so young and still learning how to win in this league. So Miami should handle that one.
Then we close it out. Dallas, traveling to Denver. Not a bad record again for Dallas, a game over 500 at 12-11. Horrible on the road. I mean, that's kind of the theme with a lot of these teams thus far. A month into the season, and then you got Denver 14-9. They're legit, and they're laying 4.5. The total is 225.5.
Yeah. The thing with Dallas, you have Luka Doncic, so you have a chance, right? He can always go off and carry a team to victory. But I think we're seeing this year, are they leaning too much on him? When are these guys like the Tim Hardaway Juniors, the Spencer Dinwiddie's, somebody has to step up on a consistent basis, right? Denver, they have the Joker, but Jamal Murray is back, right? And so I think Denver as a team, top to bottom, there's a continuity there that you can rely on a consistent basis that I just don't see in Dallas right now.
All right, stack night on Wednesday. I just want to highlight a couple games that stand out. And the only reason I'm bringing up the Clippers and the Magic, we talked how bad Detroit is. The Clippers are laying 6 tomorrow night on the road. Orlando. I mean, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel here with Orlando? Are we banking on that one rookie sensation? I mean, right now they're 5-24, 9 at home.
Yeah. I think Orlando's in that same Detroit situation, right? Where they're just trying to throw darts at the lottery wall and hoping that one sticks. And they have nice pieces, right? Paulo, right? Great development piece, but is he that franchise guy? I think the jury's still out, right? To see if he's that number one guy you want to rely on. I think they're a couple of years away from making the right decisions and developing the guys. And so I think 2-3 years, maybe, when it comes to Orlando. They just seem so far away right now. Too many young guys still developing. You don't have that proven core just yet. They're still trying to figure that out. Outside of Banchero, Bobo is showing some promising things, right? Markelle Fultz came back and he had a pretty good game, but I think these guys are still trying to find themselves in this league.
Talking about teams trying to still figure it out. You look at the Brooklyn Nets hosting the Hornets. The Nets right now, 13-12. Hornets come in lopsided record, 7-17. Brooklyn, I'm sure that number is going to close about 10-10.5. Right now it's at 9.5. The total is 221.5. They've had some wins here and there. Again, It's always contingent upon, right? If it's Durant on the floor with Kyrie and then Simmons. And at this point, I just look at it as Durant and Kyrie, to be quite honest with you. I think if they try to continue the season with the mindset they're going to get any type of contributions from Simmons, they're kidding themselves.
Well, Simmons, I guess he's out now with injury. So it's like physically, mentally, and physically, it's going to be there, right? And so I think as people who have followed the Sixers and our Sixers fans, you know what the Ben Simmons experience is like, right? You just, the reliability just isn't there. Even when he's on the floor, count on him to produce how he needs to produce. And so it's going to be KD and Kyrie, and sometimes it may just be KD. We know how the Kyrie experience is, right? All too well. And so I think with the Nets, they've proven that, when it comes to competing with the upper echelon teams of the East, they're not there yet. I mean, they played Boston the other night, and Boston took care of that easily after sweeping them in the So they're 5-0 the last time they played each other. So Boston has proven that we're the better team. Yeah,
and the Nets were going in with a little bit of a win streak and some momentum, and then they get humbled. But again, still Boston. It's Brown, Tatum. I mean, they're a different animal, right? Atlanta goes into MSG. We know Trae Young loves to play in Madison Square Garden. The Knicks are laying 2 at home. They are they're so hit or miss because I think last week when we spoke and we were talking about you need production from Randall, he had a monster game last week. Brunson, monster game. Barrett gives them a little something, but they're just too inconsistent for my liking. And I know Atlanta's had some issues as well. And I know there's some disgruntledness, with Young missing practices or being late and, showing a little bit of immaturity. This is kind of my look, but don't touch type of game.
You said 2 points. That's a 2-point line for.
Right now it's sitting at 2.
I don't trust the Knicks, Q.
Either do I.
I mean, they beat Cleveland on Sunday, which is a very good win, right? But you had 2 losses prior to that. You lose to there's a loss against Portland. It's just a tough team to pinpoint, right? Like when Brunson's on point, when Randall's on point, when RJ Barrett is really on point, like you can see the vision, right? You can see where this could be. This can be a playoff team, but it's just not clicking on a consistent basis for whatever reason that is.
No, it's not. And I don't even know if the message is falling on deaf ears with the head coach. And like I said, they don't really have a ton of production coming off the bench. 2 more. Then I want to get to your Sixers. The Warriors traveling to Utah. I had this conversation with someone the other day about the Warriors, and I was like, listen, hold on a second. I get where you're going with this, where they can just kind of turn it on and turn it off. But for a team that has arguably, we'll say 2 of the top 15 players in Curry and Thompson, right? 2 potential, definitely Hall of Famers, whatever. They stink on the road. They're 2-10. And the Jazz, they're not a bad team at home, 9-4. It's interesting. I think this is kind of recency bias and the names on the back of the jersey, but Golden State's on the road laying 2.
Yeah. And Utah, they've sort of fallen back down to earth a little bit, but they're still a team that plays pretty tough. They have a bunch of guys that can give you double digits on any given night. Like, that's what makes them so. They may not have the guy that can give you 25 and 30, but they have the guys that can give you 15 to 20 a night, right? And so that's what makes them such a tough team to challenge, and they play so well together. With Golden State, it's just not clicking on a consistent basis. Like, they lose to an Indiana team, a second-round pick, Andrew Nembhard, who's been a surprise rookie this year, dropped 30 on them, right? And so there are things that we're seeing with Golden State this year that we've never seen before during this era of basketball, right? Like the miscues, the miscommunication, Klay Thompson struggling to find his shot, right? Things that we've never even could have imagined during this Golden State run that we're seeing this year. And like you said, you can't just expect them to click it, the switch turn. Like, there has to be a consistent effort leading into that postseason push. And, they have a Steph Curry who's an MVP candidate, but still he has to have some help. There has to be more to that. The Kumingas, Moses Moody, Jordan Poole, they have to take that next step. And I think that right there is what's holding this unit back, because Klay Thompson isn't the same Klay Thompson, right?
He's not.
So you just have to, that's just the reality of the situation. So those younger guys, there has to be a more consistent effort when it comes to them.
That's a great point. Our NBA insider, Jonathan Marshall, joining us. Tuesday edition of BYP. Rich Quinones here at Rich Quinones Q. Don't forget, everything up on the YouTube channel. Again, you can just check us out, Rich Quinones Q, YouTube. A lot of subscribers, a lot of views over the last several months. Certainly appreciate it. And our bets and our thoughts from our good friends over at Spooky Express as well. So I think the marquee game that I'm going to be glued to tomorrow night, the Celtics and the Suns, because this might be a NBA Finals, or at least maybe an early season NBA Finals preview. Boston's favorite. It's -115. That's where the odds sit on the money line. -110 on DraftKings, and I saw the spreads right around 1 or 2. Look, at the end of the day, it's probably going to close with Phoenix, a point dog at home. But here's a couple things. So we'll talk about the game within the game, but from a money line, from a trend standpoint, the Suns have covered the money line in 11 of their last 12. In the last 5 of 9 away games, they have not covered the money line bet. And then you start to look at the point spreads and the trends in this one. Phoenix has hit the point spread in 9 of their last 12 home games. We know how good Boston is at home, but they're going to be traveling on the road in this one. The Boston Celtics have not covered the point spread in 5 of their last 9 away games. But I say to you, sometimes you kind of throw that out the window, because right now, the 1-2 punch of Tatum and Brown, and then you throw Smart into the mix. I just think they're too much.
This is a tough matchup. Boston's in the middle of a 6-game road trip. They're 2-0 so far, wins at Brooklyn and wins at Toronto last night. A great home team, as you mentioned, but I still think, as much as, like, how I feel about Phoenix, I think, great regular season team. But when it comes down
but they fold in the playoffs.
They fold, right? Luka did it to him again last night. Luka just has something over them. That's a whole nother conversation. But you mentioned the two J's, Jason and Jalen and Marcus Smart, but this bench for Boston with Malcolm Brogdon, Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett, Grant Williams has been playing well. Derek White is more comfortable. He was an in-season acquisition, but now he's fully comfortable in that system. I think Boston has a little bit more firepower than Phoenix right now, and so I would give the edge to Boston, even though they're in the middle of a tough road stretch. But I'll say Boston goes 3-0 on their road trip.
But that kind of separates you from really being the good to the great teams, right? I mean, you can argue right now there's 2 teams in the Eastern Conference, Boston and Milwaukee, right? And I know Giannis has been banged up here and there, but when he's on the floor, they're so tough to beat. I think the Western Conference, you have a little more wiggle room. I mean, think about Portland jumped out of the gate. Sacramento had that long run. They've come back down to earth. You still got Denver and Memphis, Golden State, Phoenix. So let me get in your Sixers for a second.
Here we go.
Well, you have to, because I think it just might be time, man. I think it might be time that you look at the head coach and it's just not working out. I mean, I heard, I watched the other night. That's a bad loss, man, because Houston stinks. And I understand the Sixers are undermanned, but you don't lose a game like that. I mean, you bring back James Harden. He returns after 14 games. Talk about the sloppiness, committed 34 fouls, right? Embiid fouled out in overtime. Yeah, 19 turnovers. So it harkens back to the Brett Brown days where we're going to go star hunting, right? You can't turn the ball over like that. It was an ugly night. Those nights, and I know what people are going to say. I can't friggin' stand when I hear jackasses say, well, you know what? A loss in December and January means nothing. Yeah, it does. It really does, because it's like an alarming trend and it can spiral. And then when you have Harden who comes back and says, yeah, you know what? The way he was kind of allocating minutes when I was out there is kind of goofy. Like, it sounds like Doc got punched in the face and he doesn't have a plan.
Yeah. This team, with they're 12-12. I guess the old saying, you are what your record says you are, right? That the old they're 500, 12 wins, 12 losses. This team is all over the place, right? You can't count on them on any given night. I don't know which Sixers team is going to show up. I don't know if they're going to be able to. They beat a Brooklyn Nets team without their main guys, and then they lose to a Houston Rockets squad with Harris, with Harden, with Embiid. And that just shows you why they are where they are right now. And I think you got to look at the head coaching. Why isn't this team prepared with a team like Houston with talent, but they don't know how to win in this? They're still learning, right? This is still a team developing. They're not proven yet. That should be a cakewalk. It should be a cakewalk, regardless. It should be a cakewalk on any given night. And so you got to look at the head coach. You got to look at Doc. I mean, Doc's history outside of that Celtics championship, there are some people who question it. I mean, let's just be honest with it. Let's just what he did with that Clipper squad. Like, given the talent versus where they went, it's just not adding up.
No.
And it's the same situation here in Philly. You got to look at Doc, number one. But this team, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Sixers fan, and I said, look, beyond this year, they're a couple of years away, if not a year away from thinking about tearing this thing down.
That's what I told you last night. To me, that's why it's shut. I'm sorry. The window is shut. You're not getting past Boston. You're not getting past Milwaukee. Hell, you might not even get past Cleveland if you meet them in the playoffs. And you might sit there and say, well, the void of talent, and they're playing with whoever they can throw out there. Last night I'm watching, I'm saying, PJ Tucker, what the hell? Like, what are you doing, man? You got KJ Martin, and I think the kid Eason, who just were so athletic last night. I'm like, what are you doing? Foul trouble early. It was ugly. They're wasting Embiid's prime years. See, that's the problem, because he's never going to give you a full, healthy season. And that's okay. You want him for 65, 70, then you get him rested up for the playoffs. I get it. But you also have to have some type of synergy, some type of cohesiveness on the floor. I mean, come on. It's just, even like with Harden, I give him a pass because he just came off a long layoff, but he played well last night. You see the impact when he's on the floor, but what James Harden is going to show up in the spring?
Exactly.
So turnovers, sloppiness, fouls, poor shot selection. Where do you lay the blame? Isn't that the head coach?
It has to be. It has to be. Why aren't these guys ready? And I think what we've seen so far, they're in for another second round exit, which is what we've seen for how long now, right? It's like the second round, you can't get over that second round hump. There was the 1 year against Toronto, but that was just that one outlier year. But besides that, we've been accustomed to these early exits, these huge letdowns. We saw it against the Atlanta series. That was a huge letdown.
Yeah.
And they're poised for another one. As hard as it may seem to believe with that, you look at that roster, you should be playing way better than what they're putting out there. But with the inconsistency in performance, you have to go to the head coach. And why aren't these guys ready to perform on a nightly basis, especially against the Houston team? Like, it shouldn't take two over. They struggled. Like, they took them to 2 overtimes. Like, they struggled in that game to get out of there.
Yeah, that's a tanking team, as you mentioned, but has talent, but they're still tanking.
Right.
But they're 6-17. The Sixers, what do? Let me jump on them early. They go on a 10-0 run. So that's your best case scenario. I get it. It's the NBA, man. Even bad teams go on a run. But, oh, my God, the shot selection, they're not boxing out, the turnovers, the bad shot selection, the turnovers, come on. I mean, how long are they going to keep riding Embiid, right? Mm-hmm. How long can you sit there and say, hey, big man, go out there and give me 35 points in 30 minutes every single solitary night? It's not sustainable.
Right.
It's not.
a lot of, and I can speak to this myself, but I've seen Sixers fans on Twitter saying, look, it's not fun to watch this team. It's just not fun.
No.
Just the brand of basketball and just watching the energy out there. Sometimes just like, what's going on? There's something's not clicking on it. Something's not clicking. And it shouldn't be this way with that roster. It shouldn't be that way.
But what do you make of James Harden basically coming out and questioning how his minutes were allocated?
Yeah. I mean, that's a guy who's like, look, does Doc know what he's doing? Like when your point guard is questioning you, like what's going on, that's not a good look. That is not a good look. It is, you got to think, is like you talked about the Knicks situation, is Doc's voice, how much how much power is that having that locker room all of a sudden? Like, I don't know.
He said, quote, way too many opportunities. We didn't execute down the stretch on either end. Just a really disappointing loss. Okay, well, you're the head coach. Like,
got to figure it out.
Because I hear people say you don't really need coaching in the NBA, but yet when you have a bad loss, you want to blame the coach. You can't have it both ways.
Coaching makes a difference. The Utah head coach, Will Wade, he's making a difference out there. Like coaching comes along. When you see the way Utah plays, that's a unified, like that's a cohesion that is missing in Philly, and that's coaching.
Do you think they need a coaching change in Philly, or they're just, it's one of these years where chalk it up again, the inconsistency, the injuries, you lose some good players in Maxey and Harden. You're still dealing with, that contract from Harris and some B-roll players.
I think a change is needed. When you have the talent and you're watching this team play and it just seems to be lifeless a lot of times, like a lot. And even James Harden's questioning how minutes are allocated. You got to question it. I can't watch certain teams and say, look, I can see where this team is going. There's a chemistry to it.
Yep.
I look at like I said, Will Hardy in Utah, what he's doing with that roster. Like you can see the coaching and how guys are responding to him, how guys are emboldened and confident out there. Like I just don't see it with this team. I don't see it on a consistent enough basis. Like I just don't. If Will Hardy or another Joe Mazzulla in Boston, like you can say, okay, Mazzulla has some great talented guys, but Mazzulla has those guys ready to play. Will Hardy in Utah has those guys ready to play on a nightly basis.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jonathan Marshall joining us, our NBA insider, sports reporter anchor at WMUR up there near the Boston area. All right, I'll give you 30 seconds to tell me how bad the Eagles are going to absolutely annihilate. I mean, it's not even going to be fair, to be quite honest with you. Is there any, I'm hoping maybe buses break down or stuff like that.
It's a rivalry game. You never know.
Come on, man.
No, listen, I just find it funny. Just weeks ago, people were saying, oh, the Eagles defense, their run defense is leaking. What do we do with Derrick Henry? Shut them down.
Listen, I don't say who you beat on the schedule. They thumped Tennessee, and Tennessee turns around and you can say because of it, fires their GM today. The Giants don't have the horses, man. They don't. Their secondary's banged up. I never expected, when the season started, I said, get me meaningful football up until Halloween.
You got it.
Which is pathetic.
But you got it.
And I would take 6 or 7 right. And what I'm going to get come Sunday is a game that's going to be overrun by friggin' Philly fans at MetLife and an Eagles team that's favored by 7-8. That's probably going to win. I'm going to go on the record right now. AJ Brown, that game against the Giants Sunday is going to remind me the first game that Owens played with the Eagles against the Giants. I think he had 3 touchdown receptions.
That game.
This has the makings of a 35-13 type of game.
I've been waiting for this, Q. I want Daniel Jones. We're licking our chops. I promise you.
That's not nice.
This might be the game where the Giants are like, yeah, he's definitely not our guy. I want that to be the game where you guys decide to get off that mid quarterback play and get something better, because you guys deserve better.
Where is this nastiness coming from? This vile.
Daniel Jones, you guys can do better.
I don't know about that.
You guys could do better.
They got to, you can't, you don't want to be a franchise that keeps drafting quarterback after quarterback after.
That's true.
And it's like an endless rudder. And then you're how Jacksonville was for years, and Cincinnati and Cleveland, the Jets, all these hits. I mean, misses for a hit. No, I'll ride it out with Jones this year. I don't have a
This
problem
year,
with it.
yes. This year, yes. But you can't just keep beating up Saquon, though. You just can't keep
I
using
think
him.
he's playing hurt.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
just
And
you
he
got to give
hasn't
him a
been.
break.
He had that big game against the Houston Texans for like a $152 and 30
Yeah.
something odd carries, and he hasn't been the same running back. So
It's just you got to give him some help. He's too good to just be breaking down like this early.
no, well, like I said, next week it'll be an ugly segment between us.
You never know. You never know. It's NFC East matchup. I've seen crazier things. You've seen crazier things
All
too.
right, yeah. From your lips to God's ears, my friend. All right, Jonathan. I appreciate you, pal. Keep up the great work. We'll talk next week. We'll get this up on the site and tweet it out and post it. But always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
All right, you take it easy.
All right, there you have it. So there's our guy, Jonathan Marshall, doing a great job as always, hanging out with us for a couple moments. Tuesday edition of BYP. Let me tell you real quick about some of the good affiliate programs with Spooky Express. My bookie, 50% free play up to 1,000. You also get casino chips. They're available. You use the promo code Spooky. Bet Online, the longest tenured online sports book. You can get 100% sign up bonus right now. Crypto only. Some of the key features that they have: a mobile experience, highest credit card acceptance rate, fastest payouts. I mean, if you're a gambler and better, you got to love that. 100% Bitcoin bonus, $20 in free sports bet, 100% casino bonus, 25 lifetime bonus on all reloads, if you will, and a 7% reboot with horse racing. So definitely check out all the great affiliate promos from spookyexpress.com. They've got a bunch of stuff, even BetDSI as well. No, their sports book has the reputation these guys have. 200% initial bonus when you open up an account. Promo code Spooky200. All right. Appreciate everyone tuning into a Tuesday edition of BYP. Check us out on Twitter at RichQonQ, IG, Facebook, and of course the YouTube channel, RichQonQ. Later in the week, we'll talk a little NFL with Lloyd Vance, and also reminding you guys 27 and Q with the big man, two-time Super Bowl champ Brandon Jacobs will be later in the week, and that'll be out on our YouTube channel and all the podcasting platforms, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, you name it, we got it. That's where we'll be. And as we always like to say, if you say it, you play it. And if you play it, you're going to back it. You're eventually going to stack it. Thanks for tuning in to a Tuesday edition of BYP. I'm Rich Quinones. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.